So good morning, church. How's everybody doing today? Is everybody happy to be in the house of the Lord today? Well, I tell you what, I sure am. Let's give a round of applause for the worship team right there. Man, that was so good today. So first, I kind of want to scare everybody a little bit because we're going to talk a little bit about technology. And so I know some of us, like me, at technology, I have to go find my millennial at work and say, hey, I don't know how to do this SharePoint thing. Can you set up my SharePoint? I don't know how to do this iCloud. Can you set up my iCloud? So we're going to talk a little bit about technology for a second. So in our younger generation, man, they use this for everything. The technology does everything. I mean, I just learned because I just got an iPhone. I updated from Android. So my kids and everybody, oh, get this because I don't. So your Android, you iPhone guys are going to understand this. Apparently that whenever everybody has an iPhone, the messages are blue. And then if you're not, then some are black and some are blue. So my kids are like, hey, we got to have blue messages. I'm like, okay, well, cool. I'm going to guess we'll have blue messages. And then my subordinates, the supervisors that work for me, goes, hey, you got an iPhone, didn't you? Like, yeah, how'd you know? Oh, because our messages are blue now. I'm like, okay, cool. So looking at technology, like I can do my little Siri thing and say, hey, Siri, set me an appointment for 7:30 on Tuesday. And it'll set the appointment. Last night, I was like, hey, let's check this out. We're talking about technology. Let me kind of do a little bit with technology. And I was like, hey, Siri, set an alarm for 7:30 in the morning. And it's set an alarm for 7:30 in the morning. There's even programs that if I wanted to, I could have said, it's a new like AI kind of thing. Write me a 15-minute sermon on technology and Christianity. And then we wrote it. Whenever I did my sermon on marriage, me and my son, Richie, just kind of like did, hey, write me a 30-minute sermon on marriage, and it wrote a sermon out. In Australia, they had an AI preacher that was made out of AI that was up on the screens, and it was a complete 100% AI. So with that technology, it can do everything. What we got to watch out for, though, is what's that technology going to do? Is that technology going to be like, we think that's a real preacher up there, and it's not, and it's preaching this false doctrine? That's why it's real important to understand. And instead of watching online all the time, come into a church so you can see that it's a real person, right? But with all this technology that can do our calendars, it can do all these things, it can even do a sermon up here and do everything else, it can do it. Those things all the time, you're like, hey, my computer's going really slow, and it's not working. Or your computer's going and you get that all of a sudden blue screen of death, that it's just your computer's completely dead and you have to start all over with everything, and you call the help desk person and you're like, hey, I'm looking at my computer, but there's this blue screen, it won't do anything. And they're like, wow, that's horrible, because guess what? Your computer's dead. Now you got to go get a new computer and start all over. So if this technology is here, and this technology that does everything for us and we depend on it so much has to restart, why would we as humans not need that same kind of restart? This thing, all it runs is on an algorithm. Its sole purpose is to work for us and make our lives easier. It's not taking kids to football practice, baseball practice, choir practice. It's not going to work. It's not waking up. It's not going to church. It's not studying. It's doing all these things. So, sometimes you have to do a reset. So as we're talking about technology, I know everybody's like, oh, man, Brother Bart's going to talk about technology this whole time, and I don't even understand what he's talking about with push this button, push that button. But we're not going to talk about technology today. That's just my introduction. But there are some times as we as Christians do need that hard reset, just like our technology devices. So for the past couple of weeks, Pastor and I have been talking about the imperfect family. So the imperfect husband, the imperfect wife, the imperfect child, the imperfect this, the imperfect that. Well, guess what? We also have the imperfect Christian, and we have that imperfect faith, right? So as I was kind of working, this wasn't even the sermon I was going to do. I was working on a whole other sermon, and then God said, you know what? That's not what I want you to talk about. You've been talking about all this stuff, and I want you to continue on with that just one more time. So I was like, okay, God, I'll listen to you. So I'm listening. And so I kind of wrote the sermon out. And then even this morning, I was like, I took a shower last night. I can sleep in a little bit more if I don't take another shower. And then it's 30 more minutes. And then God told me, he goes, clean body, clean soul, clean heart, clean mind. I was like, okay. So God wanted me to go and just kind of refresh everything that morning. So this morning I go and I refresh, and as I'm in the shower, God starts talking to me as I'm in the shower because I'm in the refresh. I got this cool new shower head that has like 7 different functions on it. It's pretty crazy. If I had better water pressure, it'd work even better, but it is an old house. So as I'm sitting there, and God is like, man, we need to talk about let's tie in the imperfect families. Let's finish out that imperfect family with the imperfect Christian and our imperfect faith. So today what we're really going to talk about is some signs and symptoms of needing that hard reset of us and our faith and how we're doing things, needing to reset our faith. But I want to kind of take it a step further, not just reset our faith, but reset our personal life, reset our marriage, reset how we parent. I just want to reset, period. Because, when you do a hard reset on a phone, that is taking it back to the factory setting. So when you do that hard reset, everything is gone, and it's like you just got it out of the box. So my objective today is to get us into a new way of thinking in our faith, to hit that reset button in our faith so that we are starting from scratch. Because the way society is today, our faith is getting kind of twisted because we're starting to accept things that we shouldn't accept. We're starting to let things slide that we shouldn't slide. We're not going to our brothers and sisters and saying, hey, that's wrong. You really ought to do it like this because that's the way that God wants. And it's not a dig. It's not throwing shade. It's not talking tea or spilling tea. What it is we're holding each other accountable the way that God tells us to. So as I was studying this, Patrice Burrell, she is Patrice Burrell Ministries. She has a Warrior Women blog. And so I was just kind of looking through the blog because she had 5 signs and symptoms of needing that reset to kind of restore our lives. So here's the 5 things that Miss Burrell came up with. First thing, you're tired all the time. You're tired all the time. How many of us can raise our hands and say we're tired all the time? I have been tired all the time, and I've been looking for all sorts of different, take this supplement, that supplement to get me some energy. I've been trying new sleep. I'm on new medications. But really, if I'm tired all the time, why haven't I been turning more toward God, saying, God, I'm tired. God, I am tired. And I haven't really dissected what is making me tired. Yeah, part of it is, my physical ailments make me tired. Sometimes my mental issues make me tired. So there's all those different things. But, devil can make you tired too. Because when you're tired, guess what you don't want to do? You don't want to do anything but sit on the couch, turn the TV on, and binge watch Netflix. Or just go to sleep. You don't want to spend time in the Word. You don't want to spend time in the Bible. You don't want to go to take your kids to children's church. You take them to all the other athletic events. We don't take them to children's church. But you'll do all these different things, but it detracts. It really takes away from what we're really supposed to be doing. So that's a big sign of needing that reset, is that you're tired all the time. A second thing that she talked about was you are too busy to spend time with God. And that kind of goes hand in hand with being tired. But you're too busy. I don't have time to read my Bible because I'm doing this, this, and this. And if you look at our lives, man, I've seen Saturday I'm going to Houston for a soccer tournament, and I'm getting back at 3 in the morning, so I can't go to church. Well, I'm doing soccer practice Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Can't go to Wednesday church because I'm doing soccer practice for the kids. I have a swim meet this time. Susie's doing track. And then Jim Bob, well, he's doing this and this and this and this. So you have so many different things going on in our lives that we're just too busy. And then we're also too busy with the other things of the world, which is TV, TikTok, Snapchat, all the different social media things. So we're being tired all the time. So we really need to look at what's making us tired. Then we're too busy to spend time with God. What is making us so busy? The third thing is you're consistently pessimistic. You're consistently looking at all the negative. So God teaches us, and the Bible teaches us, that sometimes when we look at the negatives, we're supposed to look at the negative as a positive the best way we can, because how can we turn that negative into a positive? And that positive is going to be how we're using that negative to bring Christ forward. How we're using that negative to build ourselves and give us that persistence to continue on and to understand God and to believe in him. Because God does give us those challenges for that reason. And I'm not saying if you have a bad thing in your life that God made that bad thing happen. God doesn't do that. I mean, there might be a time that God says, I'm going to give this person this trial. But God isn't intentionally causing strife and heartache in your life to give you a challenge. But our free will that we have sometimes creates that strife. And God, being the good God that he is going to turn that negative into something positive. So with that, we need to really look at why are we being pessimistic of every single thing. You criticize everything. Criticize how somebody looks. Criticize how they drive. Criticize how they walk. Criticize how they do their job. Criticize how they preach. Criticize how they pray. Criticize how they sing, right? Oh, woe is me, the world is horrible, and everything is just horrible. Well, as Christians, is that what we're taught to do? No. We're taught to be the opposite of that, so those pessimistic people can see us and say, wow, I've gone through some hard times in my life, and I've had people ask, how are you going through that with a smile? Rich, how are you doing that with a smile? This is going on, that's going on, that's going on, and you're over here smiling. Well, because I understand through my faith that this is a temporary situation and that God is going to lift me out of that situation and turn this bad situation into something good. So a true Christian isn't going to be pessimistic. And that's not to say as Christians we can't have a bad day. That's not as Christians to say you have to be smile and go lucky all the time. But if somebody knows that you're going through a hard time and they see that smile on you, they're going to want to know why. Man, I know your grandma just died, but you're not just sitting there depressed. You've got a smile on your face. Why? Well, because I know that my grandma is with God and she's in a better place now because she's where I want to be. So instead of being sad because she's gone, I miss her as a person. But as a Christian, I'm thankful that she just achieved the ultimate victory. That's why I can smile. Or you lose your job. Oh, man, Brother Bart, you haven't been working for 3 months. Why are you still out here happy, preaching on everything else? Because God's going to take care of me. And guess what? In that time frame that I left one job working for the state and I was unemployed for 3 months, guess what? I wasn't worried. And I can guarantee you prior to my faith being where it is, I'd have been on Indeed and Monster and looking and taking any job that came forward. But I said, God, I'm going to sit here, be still, be patient, let you put this new job next in line for me versus me just grabbing something. And I did not miss one bill. I did not have to ask for money. I did not have to do anything other than be still, be patient, pray, and God took care of me. But I could have been pessimistic. Oh, woe is me. I don't have a job now. What am I going to do? But I have faith. And one other thing that I knew is that if I got in a real hard bind, man, I have a whole family at my church besides my family that can help me while I'm down. But the thing is, where we make a mistake is we let our pride get in our way and we're come and too afraid to ask our church family for help. But I want to let you know, before there was any kind of social welfare system in America, they sent you to the church. You didn't get on food stamps, you went to the church. You didn't have WIC, you went to the church. If you didn't have money for rent, you didn't have to go get on any kind of other thing than go to the church and get help from your church. And then the government changed that. But we can get back to that by having a little bit of letting the pride go down, humble ourselves. I need help. Who doesn't need help? Amen. There's not one person in this room that says, hey, my life is perfect. I don't need help from anybody. I made that mistake once before I got saved. And guess what? God put the whipping on me and told me, guess what, Brother Bart? You may be a cop. You may be a bad military guy. You may have done some crazy stuff. But guess what? You ain't as bad as you think you are. And I'm going to show you. And guess what? He showed me. He showed me real good. And guess what that turned into? Me having a passion to want to come and speak his word, because if he pulled me out of there, he could pull anybody out of there. And that's why I'm here today. So don't be pessimistic. Don't be pessimistic. Fourth thing that she talks about, and this one's big. You have lost your passion for serving others. And this is where we make a big mistake as Christians, because we don't really see and understand that our sole purpose of being a Christian is to serve others. We think our job of being a Christian is to come here on Sunday, maybe I'll be good and go on Wednesday, but that's it. I showed up to church, went to Monday, I checked this box, I checked that box, and now I'm good to go for the week, and I can go do whatever I want to do. That's not being a Christian. It's serving others. And when we talked about when you're pessimistic and people see that smile on your face, but you have that smile on your face, you're still out there serving others, man, you're going through this hard time, but you're still out here helping people? Why? What did I just set the example? Because what brings people into the church and what brings people to salvation is seeing how we live. We have to set that example. And so if we're in one of these ruts where our faith isn't where it needs to be, and we're doing any of these 4 previous things we've talked about, guess what? We're not setting an example. Who's going to want to come to church? If you're pessimistic and you're the negative Susie, guess what? I don't know why to be a Christian? I can be over here and do whatever I want to do and not have any kind of sacrifice and be pessimistic all day long. If that Christian can do it, why would I want to make that sacrifice? But whenever they see the life that we have because of the faith that we have in Jesus, that's what makes them want to come to the church. That's what makes them want to get a piece of it. For husbands and wives, we talked about imperfect marriages. Sometimes it's the wife that starts going to church and the husband doesn't go to church, but he starts seeing the change in the wife, and the wife is not the same wife that they married before. Man, she's different. Why? Man, she started acting different because she started going to church. Maybe I want to go to church because then maybe my life will be different. You have a friend at work that sees the same thing. Man, I want what you have. Our examples what brings people here, and that's the importance of us not getting to this point to where we haven't have our faith where it needs to be. That's why we need to restore it. Passion for serving others, that is, God commands us to do that. Jesus served everybody, and we're supposed to be as much as Jesus as we can. The easiest thing we can do to be like Jesus, because we can't be perfect like him, is to go serve others. That's something that every person can do. Whatever your spiritual gift is, you can go out and do it. If you're not a public speaker, that's fine. There's other things that you can do to serve God. So we need to get out of our comfort zone, use the gifts that we have to go out there and serve others. Have that servant's heart. Because that's like, this is what Ms. Brielle said is one of the 5 things of knowing you need to do that reset. The last thing, and this is important, if you have forgotten God's faithfulness. So that's the 5th sign, but if you look at it as not only just a 5th sign, that is a summation of all of the prior 4. That's right. Yes. Because if we have faithfulness in God and we know that he's faithful to us, it's harder to be tired. It's harder to not spend time with him because you just want to eat it up so bad. It's very hard to be pessimistic when you know that God is right there taking care of it all. And you're really going to want to serve others because God is touching your heart so much that you just want to spread it on. Right? So those are the 5 things that show that. So as we see those 5 things, I want you to just kind of think to yourself for a second. Of those 5 things that were in the Power Ministry blog, how many of those 5 am I dealing with right now? And I tell you, if you just have one, I mean, that's a real good reason to reset. But I can look at it. There's probably a good chunk of us that are in the 3, 4, and 5, if we're not kidding ourselves. So take a look at that. So as I mentioned earlier, sometimes you have to call the help desk. And so as we're sitting there, I started thinking about, okay, so if we had to call the help desk. So I'm having trouble with my faith, right? So I'm going to call Interfaith Technologies. And so I'm calling Interfaith Technology. I'm like, hey, yeah, hello. This is Mr. Bart. I'm having trouble with my faith today. Oh, okay, you're having trouble with your faith today? Yes, I'm having trouble with my faith today. First things first, did you turn your power on? Yes, I turned my power on. Okay, because, the number one thing is people just forget to turn the power on. Okay, well, I turned the power on. I see the light. It's on. But my faith is kind of weak. Okay, so your faith is weak. So the first thing I'm going to look here. Hold on. Let me get in the kiosk here. Okay, did you study your Bible a little bit first? Yeah, I studied my Bible, but, my faith is still a little bit weak. Well, okay, and let's move on to the next step here. Let's see. My little thing says here, are you too busy to spend time with God? Yeah, my schedule's real busy, so maybe you need to, maybe that's what it is. Well, maybe you need to reset your schedule. So they go on and on and on, and finally the guy says, hey, you know what we need to do? We need to do a hard reset. He exhausted every means on there, everything that he could do of pushing the power button. You'd always tell the first thing they always tell you is, I need you to turn the power off, wait 10 minutes, and turn it back on. That is the fix for everything. And believe it or not, it usually works. But sometimes it's a little bit harder than just turning the power off and on. And sometimes in our faith, in our walk, we get to that point, and it is just as simple as turning the power off and on. Maybe it's kind of taking a little break. Maybe it's, hey, we're going to go on vacation and kind of relax and reset ourselves, and then our faith will kick back on. But sometimes it just doesn't happen. So when we call our Interfaith Technologies help desk, and they tell us, hey, we need you to do a hard reset because I don't think unless you do this, your faith is going to be back where it needs to be. So the Interfaith Technology guy is saying, okay, the two things that we need to do, I need you to hold down that restore button for about 3 seconds, and then wait the 3 seconds, and then I want you to push that revival button and hold them together for the same time. And then as you're holding that down, in 5 more seconds, I want you to push that power button. And then after you do that, it's going to reset. So it sounds difficult, so we're going to make it real easy. So all we got to do for our reset is restore, like restoration and revival. So when we come to restoration or restoring, man, it doesn't matter how long that you've been a Christian, whether you just started, you've been a Christian for 50 years. There's going to be that time that, you hit that wall. Sometimes it's going to be like you're going 80 miles an hour and you hit that reinforced brick wall that has the steel, the concrete, and you just smack into it and your faith needs reset. Sometimes you get in such a low, it can be like one of those small San Angelo potholes, or it could be like the Grand Canyon that you're just down in this pit. So it doesn't really matter where you're at in your faith and whether it's a little low or a big low. We have to remember that God puts us through seasons in our lives to test our faith and to give us that perseverance that we need and that persistence to continue on with our faith. And it tells us in James 1:2-4, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. And it continues on. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. Oh, that's so powerful. So powerful. Consider it an opportunity for great joy. We were just talking about not being pessimistic. One of the little burnout things. Bringing great joy. So in your times that it's kind of rough, be joyful. I'm not asking anybody to go turn a flip because they're going through a hard time. But take that negative and try to turn it into some type of positive. And it says when your endurance grows and it's fully developed, you'll be perfect, complete, needing nothing. So can we ever achieve that? I don't think we'll really, truly achieve that till we're right next to our Savior. But I can attest and I can witness to the fact that when you believe and your faith is strong, like when I lost my job and I was not worried about feeding my family, which every man, our biggest concern is taking care of our family. But I wasn't worried. And the only reason I wasn't worried is because my endurance was developed. I can't say fully developed, but it was developed, needing nothing. Because the only thing that I needed was my faith. And it also continues on in Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on the wings like eagles. Oh, yes. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. So if we restore our faith and we bring our faith up to the level that it needs to be. We hit that reset button, and all those things that have knocked our faith down here, we stop it, we reset it, and we go back to when we were first believers, or that excitement we had when we first believed, and we continue on and get that endurance that's out there. Our faith will restore, and it will renew our strength. Isaiah says it, Isaiah 40:31. Could you imagine? Soar on the wings like eagles, run and not grow weary, walk and not be faint. That is the benefit of resetting and restoring this faith, is because when that faith is there, we will be there and we will be victorious. We'll be able to move forward above and beyond all things that are possible because we redid our faith. Next thing that we have that we need to reset is revival. And I kind of wrote down the biblical definition from the Bible dictionary for revival. Revival refers to a spiritual reawakening from a state of dormancy or stagnation in the life of a believer. So spiritual reawakening, state of dormancy, stagnation. So we're not doing anything. We're dormant. We're just sitting there. And hopefully we're sitting there waiting to be awoken, not just sitting there. Right? It encompasses the resurfacing of a love for God, an appreciation of God's holiness, a passion for his word and his church, a convicting awareness of personal and corporate sin, a spirit of humility, and a desire for repentance and growth in righteousness. So we need that revival. And there's been revivals throughout history. There's been several great revivals. That's where some of the revivals have actually created branches off of different religions. But that's not the revival I'm talking about. The revival I'm talking about isn't just pitching a tent up and trying to bring people in and doing some evangelism. I'm talking about a self-revival, a revival of your faith, a revival of understanding where we are, that spiritual awakening to realize that, man, our God is great. Jesus died on that cross for my sins, so I don't have to worry about my sin. I can focus on other things because Jesus took care of it. And the only thing that I have to do, and the only thing that God asked me to do, was to go to the ends of the earth, to all the corners, and preach his word. Talk about me. I will give it all to you. Just talk about me. Repent, believe, and talk about me. Which a lot of us, that's where we end up kind of slacking, is the talking about him. And in today's society, we're afraid to. What happens when you mention God to somebody at work? You get called into the office. My niece just went in and involved in that situation. She said, Lord, help this person. The person said, well, I don't believe in your Lord, so he ain't going to help me for nothing. Okay. Later on, the guy starts attacking and starts poking at her on her faith. You're believing in a nobody, so what is he going to do for you or me? So just for her saying, hey, help this guy help me because he's being ugly to me, turned into this whole big ordeal, which luckily, and I'm very surprised, the company kind of supported her and didn't go after her versus the person that's living in a different world. So I have to be thankful to that. But the thing is she was attacked. And that's the importance of the revival is, as Christians, the Bible tells us you're going to be persecuted against. And if you look at, that is starting now. How many times the church has been sued? There's a pastor in Canada. Now, he's a little bit extreme, but he keeps getting arrested because he'll just stand there and say Bible verses outside of an abortion clinic, and he gets arrested for making people that want to go get abortions uncomfortable. He gets arrested for it. There's a law that says that you cannot stand in front of an abortion clinic and say anything negative toward the person that's walking into the clinic. And he's not shouting, saying you're going to hell or you're going to do. All he's saying is something as simple as God is love. And he's going to jail because that can make that person feel uncomfortable. So that's the world we're living in, and so that's the real importance of a revival. So Acts 17:30 tells us this. Therefore, having overlooked the times of ignorance, God now commands all people everywhere to repent, because he has set a day when he is going to judge the world in righteousness by the man he has appointed. He has provided proof of this to everyone by raising him from the dead. So that's another importance of revival. For Christians ourselves, we have to restore that faith. We have to restore our belief. We need to understand the power that the faith has. But in relation to the revival, and when we're resetting our faith, we have to understand that we have to repent from our sin. We have to understand that the times are changing and our persecution comes, and we have to maintain our strength to fight that persecution. And if you look at history in the Bible, David was struggling with the same kind of thing. David was going through where kind of had his best friend killed because he got his best friend's wife pregnant. Not so good, right? But there's nothing that the eyes of the Lord will not see. It always says that darkness will come to light, amen, right? So David's realizing, man, I sinned, and the prophet's coming and telling him, hey, look, you're sinning. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. But you are the chosen one, but it isn't going to be on that. So David's like, okay, I need to kind of fix this a little bit. So David's in Psalm 51:10 says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. And so when I was looking at it, I was like, okay, so that sounds nice. But I looked in the Message Bible, and the Message Bible is a Bible that really puts it in really modern day terms. So if you really have, and I don't really like it as a translation because sometimes it gets really loose in its translation, and it can kind of not be as impactful or kind of minimize things. But in this one is fairly decent, so I went ahead and looked at it for this. So the Message version of Psalm 51:10. God, make a fresh start in me. Shape a Genesis week from the chaos of my life. Don't throw me out with the trash or fail to breathe holiness in me. Bring me back from great exile. Put a fresh wind in my sails. Amen. That's the Message version. So David's saying, create in me a clean heart. So that's what I want us to do today, is when we're doing this reset, one thing we need to ask is, God, make me new. Create in me that clean heart and renew a steadfast spirit in me. That's the true excitement of revival, is that revival is asking exactly what David was asking God, was to create a clean heart. My heart is dirty. I did some ugly things, but make it new. Clean it. Clean my heart. So with all of everything that's going on, and we're looking at all of our imperfect families, and we're looking at all the different imperfections that we have, and now we've kind of seen some imperfections in faith, we need to really look at our hard reset. So restore our faith is the first button we push, because revival isn't anything without the faith. Because if you don't have faith in God, you really can't have that clean heart or have that belief in it, because your faith isn't there to reinforce that revival. So first thing, restore your faith. Next thing, generate the revival. And so as I was looking at all of this, and I'm thinking to myself, man, what a good way to end the sermon series. And I want to challenge everybody here today to really challenge themselves. Because I want to tell you from my own experience, if we restore the faith, because I'm going to tell you guys, well, I'm going to get a little personal here for a minute. There was a time in my life where my faith was gone. And I wasn't raised in the church at all. I went to a church, but it wasn't a church that taught us that a relationship with Jesus. It was more of a science-based, scientific type church, which I kind of understand because my grandfather was a nuclear physicist, so I kind of see why he went that way. But it wasn't until I kind of started going into a Baptist church and kind of learning some things. But I was faking the funk. I wasn't a true Christian. I was doing what I talked about earlier, checking the boxes. I wanted to check the box and say, I'm going to church, I'm doing this. But like I said earlier, there's that one day that God just said, you are not who you think you are. You are not as big and bad as you think you are. And I tell you what, I literally felt the hand of God touch me. And it wasn't a touch of, oh, Brother Bart. It was a good smack in the back of the head. And I heard him talking to me plain as day, telling me, Brother Bart, Richie, you're so wrong in what you're doing. You are not this person that you think you are. What you really are is you are my son. And you have been doing things your way. And your way has led you down a path that you can't recover from. But if you do what I say exactly as I tell you to do it, I will fix it all. And I heard that, heard it plain as day, like I'm talking to my dad at home, just telling me that. And I get goosebumps right now just remembering that conversation that God had. It was the first time in my life that I had really just heard God. And it was the first time that I had faith. And what really sealed the deal was the next day I went and got saved. It was at Christian House of Prayer with my wife's best friend's husband. And I went and I got saved. And the very next day after I got saved, I went to a very horrible police call. And God put me in a position to speak his word and help a family that had just lost their baby. And I said that day, God, if I was a sinner yesterday, and the very next day, you put me in a position. I remember I had just got saved, and there's a little girl that said that she had lost connection with God. And remember me, Coach Bart? I was that strong Catholic girl, and I went astray, and I need Jesus. I need Jesus too. And I just found him, and I know what to do now. So this is what you need to do. And we did the prayer together. And she'd done it before. And the sad thing is her sister, before she got there, was saying, I need my sister. I need my sister. I need my sister. They hadn't been talking for almost a year. And when God put in a position to see one of my old students fix a family relationship, help a girl that had just lost her child, and God gave me the words to say, because as a new believer, I did not know what to say. And there's little events before, like somebody had given me a crucifix and some Catholic ornamentation, like a St. Lucy, but I didn't even know it. I'm not a Catholic. But that family was, and it gave me the opportunity I used to carry them in my vest. I know what else to do with them, but I knew God had given them to me for a reason. And God gave me the words to tell the young lady about her child, the reason her child died. Now she can be angry at God, and she can be upset with him, and he will always take her back. And your little sister, she just got saved again. And God brought her back, and the year before, her father had died in a tractor accident, almost to the day. It's full of tragedy. And then God put me in the middle of all that and said, now that you're working for me and you have that faith, I'm going to let you go do it. And that is what started the chain roll to put me here in front of you preaching today, was God's put it in my heart and said, you are mine. Being a police officer doesn't define you. Being an Air Force person doesn't define you. What defines you is you are my son. And when I started believing that I was his son, and that I was working for him, that I belonged to him and not to the world, my life changed. So I just want to give everybody today an opportunity. If you need a change in your life, and you just need the touch, come up to the altar. I know y'all did an altar call earlier today, but everybody here today needs to hit that reset button. And if you want to hit the reset button, come up here today, right now, not tomorrow. Don't wait, because you know what? If your iPad stopped working, you're not going to wait to call the tech agency to fix it tomorrow. You're going to call them right now. So I want you to come up right now. And if you want some prayer, we can pray for you. But if not, just come to the altar and rededicate yourself to God. Let God know that you want to hit that reset button. Let him know that you want to restart your faith, that you believe in him. So make your way up to the stage.